started out with number 66.
This house is stinks.
Oh, it's horrible. I had one of those at CAI the third year. And I've got a really nice one from,
The SM4 from Basinger.
yes. And it's
You-
perfect.
Everything else is junk after you go in there.
Yeah, and I had used it the year before and patched into the house system. Everything worked great. It sounded fabulous. And then we went and they had this new one and they wanted to sell it and they wanted to hook through it and it was nothing but a hassle the whole night. You couldn't get it to work. I mean, if I wanted, I would pick something else. Well, I guess I gotta get started here pretty soon. I thought we'd have more people, but we have what we have. We can go right about there. Well, we're supposed to start at 8:15, correct?
Yeah, he went in there to make an announcement that you get ready to start.
All right.
Get ready back. And we've actually started. Get him signed up. Yeah, thank you, man.
We'd be looking for it later.
You here from CE?
Yes.
Sign your name. Here comes the rest of them. We'll get ready. Thank you. Good morning. 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 Come on in. Man, I'm going the wrong direction.
Swimming upstream.
Morning, everybody. We'll start in just a minute. Give everybody a chance to get in and get a seat.
Oh, Lisa, how you in? Oh, that's not good. Come on in.
All right, we have a lot of ground to cover today, so I am going to go ahead and get started because I've already 1 minute late. I hate being late. I'm Rob Wyman from St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you for having me down here, and my wife Kim over here. Oh, yeah, I need to let's sign in. Sign outside. Hey, sign.
Who hasn't signed up for CE yet? 'Cause I got to take it. Yes. I'm just trying to get it. They're both up to 3 years.
CE form over here.
Good thing, we sure he does this one.
Hey,
I'll take one.
don't listen to him, Terry.
Good morning, everyone. That's why you say good luck, huh? Okay, my name is, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today. Just like this. His name is Rob Wyman, C-A-I-G-E-A-C-E-S-B-A-S. Non-take breaths, okay. He is the president of Mountain City Auctions of St. Louis, Missouri. His company has sat over 600 world record prices selling collectibles, comic books. Rob is a member of the National Auctioneers Association and the Missouri Professional Auctioneers Association. Rob has earned the NAA's highest distinction, the Certified Auctioneers Institute, CAI, as well as the NAA Accredited Auctioneer of Real Estate, AARE, and the Certified Estate Specialist, CES designation. Rob is a benefit auction specialist designee and has only to have his project approved to earn that designation. Rob is an approved NAA instructor and has taught classes at the national and state level. Rob conducts real estate, estate, liquidation, business, collectibles, consignment, benefit, and he is probably the most awesome comic book auctioneer you will ever find. He has a BS in computer science from Webster University and has worked as a software engineer from McDonnell Douglas, Boyd, Lockheed Martin, Palex, and CyberSource. Rob was a sergeant E5 in the Army in ComSec, Communication Security Repair. He was a licensed and master electrician and a high school teacher. Rob was also a CAI classified of mine. We graduated together a year ago. Incredible person. Pay attention to what he's got to say, because his greatest phrase that I've ever learned from Rob is, the internet is a great equalizer. And when Rob did his comic book auction that set 605 world records, he didn't know anything about comic books. But what he did know is how to use the internet and how to market on the internet. And you don't break 600 world records selling comic books that you have nothing to know about unless you know how to manipulate the internet. This guy, he's also set up in the exhibition booth there. So if you want to spend time with him, he's going to be over there. He'll answer any question. He's the most outgoing, and he will spend the time with you. So feel free to go up and shake his hand and introduce yourself. Rob,
I got a little present for Cy. We got this little battleship. It's Battleship Texas. It's salt and pepper shakers. It's from St. Louis, but we figured it needed to come back here to Texas and live. All right. I'm going to try and talk without this microphone because can everybody hear me? Yes. You're fine? I'd rather not mess with it. It gives me a little issues. I'm Rob Wyman. First thing I need to do is explain this whole classic thing. The reason it says classic on my card and on here is because I think I'm so doggone great. It's my son is also Rob Wyman, but he's not a junior, so we call him Rob Light. And I don't want to be Rob Chubby or Rob Wrinkly or Rob older than the other guy, so I go by Rob Classic. So if you hear somebody come up to me, hey, Classic, how's it going? It's not because I think I'm great, it's just because I don't want to be Rob Chubby. Hard work, empty hands. Wikipedia defines the Chinese phrase kung fu as achievement through great effort. Also, you could say hard work. Okay, everybody comes to this class with different expectations. But let me set your expectations right from the beginning. Hard work, empty hands. Karate is Japanese for empty hand. So, Google Kung Fu and Karate for Auctioneers. It's going to be a class about hard work that you do with your empty hands to get more and better results from the internet for you. And this, I'm going to come at this from 2 or 3 different angles here. Anytime you want to stop me, I welcome questions. Okay, I'm not one of these guys that wants you to save them all to the end. If there's something that's confusing you, I'd really rather know right away. Okay, because it's really simple to go too fast. Yes, sir.
Everybody signed up for your CE yet? Make sure if you don't sign in, you don't get it.
And then I'm going to pass these around. What this is for, at the end it says, let's make a Google Knowledge Graph together. I'll explain that by the end of the 4 hours. Let's just talk about it a little bit at the beginning. This class is as current as it can be. Some of the stuff that's in the class happened yesterday or the day before, okay, with things that are new. Google introduced something called the Knowledge Graph on the 15th of last month. Google's completely changing what they're doing to some extent. And trying to teach a class on Google, I think it's a little bit like, you see the people who are riding a horse shooting a bow. It's like shooting at somebody else on a horse, and they're riding towards you, you're riding the other way, and both you're moving as you're bouncing. Google's like that. Google changes. They shift their algorithm. You might hear me say algorithm at some point today. Just think of that as the way they do things, their plan, their algorithm. So, hard work, empty hands. That's what we're here to talk about today. It isn't magical. It isn't mysterious. It's just thinking about this from different angles over and over and over and over different ways, and then applying what it is that you learn. I have a Bachelor of Science from Webster University. I did work as a software engineer at Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Phalanx. I did e-commerce transaction processing. So if you take credit card payment on the internet, there's a 25 to 35% chance you use the software I wrote. The stuff that I did worked on payment pipes so that you can talk to a specific bank. And basically, I was kind of like a translator. I wrote stuff to the Visa and Vital 1081 specification. If I talk about it anymore, I'll hear all these thuds because your heads will hit them. Okay. Moved around money on the internet. And I also implemented the fraud protection. So I did the address verification value and the card verification values. I mean, Visa wrote it. I just made it work with our stuff that we had. But it got used by a lot of other places. We have over 600 world records selling comic books. We developed some niche markets, things like Civil War stuff, coins, real estate, comic books. Okay, when you have a world record, you have to beat people like this. Sotheby's is to the left. There's Christie's in the middle. That's Heritage to the right. You're from Texas, so you know what Heritage is. If I'm someplace else, they've never heard of Heritage up in Missouri, unless they're really high in the collectibles market. They don't know who they are. But that's their world headquarters. That's ours. I figure they have more people on their cleaning crew than we have in our business. When you consider a world record out of a little ranch house in St. Louis, if I can do it, you can do it. And I'm just going to show you some of the stuff that I did. We had slide printouts. They're old. I've changed everything since then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass around this sheet. If you give me your email address, I'll send you a copy of the slides on Dropbox. If you don't know how to use Dropbox, I'll show you. All you basically will do is click on this link. Dropbox is really cool, and you can just download the PowerPoint slides. So don't spend a lot of time today furiously taking notes. Everything you see here is going to be sent to you. And my goal at the end of this is we create a Google group called Google Kung Fu for Auctioneers. You all sign up and you have access to it so we can share stuff with each other. Because it could be that your Kung Fu is better than my Kung Fu. Somebody in here is going to be smarter than me in something. Let me give you an example of that for a second. I did a little thing not too long ago where, I gotta tell you so I can't talk. This is my website, Mound City Auctions. If you go here, I also have a resources tab up at the top. And if you go to that resources tab, I have this online bid tools thing. I'm going to put more resources here for people, but this one takes you, if it works right, out to a Google document that I made. I just started this thing, and then I invited other people to help me work on this by sharing it with them. If anybody is interested in helping maintain a tool that talks about all the different online bidding platforms that are out there, the different tools, I can send me an email and I'll put you in there. I shared this file with people, and I would sit there and watch, and at one point in time, there were 11 people working on this at one time. No, 12. And I'm just sitting there watching, and things are changing, and things are happening. So, this is an example of what you could do with a Google group, okay? So I saved this thing as a file, and I shared it, and then I had a bunch of people who knew more about it than me, and they were on there showing me what this, this platform did or that platform did. And I just created the idea and built kind of the framework. And then everybody else got in there and did all the real heavy lifting. But that's the type of thing you can do with a Google group. This is what people think about when they think of Google, right? You see that little bitty search bar, and you figure they really spend a lot of time trying to make Google look simple. They really have an extremely complex tool that they have developed. But at Google, they like things to look clean and simple. And they have a lady whose job it is to beat the people up who want to put more stuff on the front page. If you think about it, if you went back to Alta Vista or Yahoo or some of the other search engines, they're very cluttered. Google is very clean. But that's not what Google does. That's what Google does. Okay? This is a cool thing. You might want to write this down. FreeMind, F-R-E-E-M-I-N-D. I'll also put it in the Google group. This is a little cool tool. It's a type of thing called a mind map. If you are like me and you grew up going through computer science classes, we had tools like this. We call them flowcharts. It's a little bit like a flowchart. But you put Google in the center there. I don't have one of those fancy pointers, so you have to imagine I'm pointing a little red dot in the center. Okay? And if you look at that, you'll see all sorts of stuff that Google does that you maybe never heard of. Has anybody here ever heard of Orkut?
What was that?
Orkut, O-R-K-U-T. It'll be on the slide, you don't have to write it down. How about Google Fusion Tables? Anyone ever heard of Google Fusion Tables? All right, let's start from the beginning. Who's used Google? Raise your hand. Who uses something else to search? Raise your hand so I can make fun of you. All right. Yahoo? Okay. You use what? Dogpile. Okay. We're going to go through at the beginning of this class how search originated, right from the beginning. Has anybody ever used Gopher? But me?
Yeah.
Who used Gopher?
Okay.
All right. Who used Archie? Veronica? Jughead? Okay. Before there was the World Wide Web, there was this thing we called the Internet. Okay? And it used to be a lot harder to use. And there were some students that put together some search tools at the University of Michigan, and their mascot is a gopher. So they called it Gopher. I've actually used Gopher. Then there was a thing about the archive of the web, and they called it Archie for archive. But then they made another search engine that was a little bit different. They called it Jughead. And then it came Veronica. But some older search engines. If you start to understand how these search engines work, and by the way, they don't tell you. They don't tell you how they work, and they change how they work. That's that algorithm thing I was talking about. But when you start to understand a little bit of a process called reverse engineering, you can do little tests. And I used to be a testing engineer. I did testing at Boeing and Lockheed, and I taught their testing class for all of the software engineers. So I've had tough crowds before. When you're teaching classes and the people are weapons designers, they can be a really tough crowd to talk to. So you guys don't scare me though. Did anybody get an email from Google a little while back? I'm going to read this slide. I hate when people read these slides, but this one's really important. One policy, one Google experience. On March 1st, 2012, we changed our privacy policy. We got rid of over 60 different privacy policies across Google and replaced them with one that's a lot shorter and easier to read. The new policies and terms cover multiple products and features, reflecting our desire to create one beautiful and simple intuitive experience across Google. Okay, remember that page before? 60 privacy policies? There's this sum of the 60 little privacy policies you would have to sign up to get into those things. So Google had all these different things, and we can go into a whole lot of them if you want. I have a structured class that I have to present, but I also have the ability to jump out and talk about some of these other things, and if there's something that's been vexing you, if I don't know the answer, I'll help figure it out, but typically I might know it, so don't be afraid to ask. But so Google came up with one privacy policy. Now, this is part of what it said, what it means and why it matters. Notice in here that it's talking about they want to tailor the search results that you get so that it'll be best for you. We're going to come around to this again later when I talk about this Google Knowledge Graph. I think it ties in very nicely with this, and you can kind of start seeing what they do. But notice that it says, they're going to tailor your search results based on the interest you've expressed in Google+. Has anybody here beside me ever used Google+? Please raise your hand. All right, let me talk about what that is for just a minute. Google Plus is Google's attempt to kind of fight against Twitter, I think. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. I'm looking at Julie because she knows all about this stuff. It's kind of like Twitter, and it's kind of like Facebook at the same time. It's if you took Google and you took Twitter and you took Facebook and you stuck them in a shake and bake bag and you shook them all up, you would get Google Plus. It has combined features. Here's what Twitter is. If you don't know what Twitter is, it is kind of this little teeny front-end program that you see where you can talk about something, but you can only do like one little sentence, 144 characters. And you can cheat by using tiny URL and stuff, but basically people say a few words about something and then put a link in there. And it's kind of like a news feed where if you were interested in this convention, you could do, isn't there like one for this with a hashtag and then TAA 2012 or something, you could tweet about it. And if someone else was following that, think of it as news that you could submit to and say, hey, tell me anything anybody says about this Texas auction convention. And then you can look and you can keep up with it right there. It's how all these protesters know to go to a certain square at a certain time. They follow a topic on Twitter. Well, Google Plus has taken that concept, and you can go in and, like, I was doing a benefit auction on Alzheimer's. So I got on in Google Plus, and I typed in Alzheimer's. And then after a few seconds, things start just showing up. It wasn't like regular search, where you get in there, and you search, and the results are static. They just sit there. So let me pop out for just a second, and go to Google, and I'll show you. When you're at Google, you can search on Google Plus. There might be a better way to do this, but this is how I always do it. And you get into Google Plus like that. And when on Google Plus, say you were interested in the Android phone. I use that because people are always talking there about that. You'll notice that I'm a horrible speller. So I have to stop all the time and look. When I was working as a software engineer at Lockheed, I'm working with people who put stuff in space, and the whole four of us in this black hole project couldn't spell our way out of the wet paper bag. So, do we see anything coming up about Android yet? If we sit here and wait, news feeds will start bumping in and knocking the other stuff down about the Android phone. Of course, since I said it was going to happen, nothing's happening. Did I spell it wrong? What? Come on, don't let me down. Use your imagination and imagine that that's scrolling down and not trying to make me look bad. Here's what's happening though. Let me ask you this question. B-A-S-S. Imagine you just type that in. B-A-S-S. What are you looking for?
Upright
An upright what?
base.
An upright base. How about you? A fish. How about you? Fish? Somebody else?
Could be shoes.
Shoes. All right. Could be a guitar. How does Google know what to give you? Google reads your email. If you have a Gmail account and you wrote something about being in a band and you type in BASS, you're going to get something about a guitar. Because Google knows. If you went to YouTube and you watched a video about fishing, you're getting a fish. Isn't that scary? Did you know they did that? They know your email, they know what you searched on, they know what you searched on before you searched on that, what you're going to search on later. They've already pretty much figured that out too. So that's how Google knows when you type in pink to give you a band or a color. And they're tailoring this more all the time with this social graph that they're introducing. But they'll look at what you did on YouTube, they'll look at what your friends have done. If you're friends with a bunch of musicians, they're gonna give you a guitar. Okay? And they have a very complicated algorithm that figures this stuff out on what to serve up to people. I'm going to cover these things for sure. We might be doing a lot more. But Google Groups. Who here has used Google Groups? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I'll teach you something you didn't know. That's great. Get your money's worth. Picasa. Anybody use Picasa? Raise your hands real high. All right. Picasa. Okay, let's start with Google Groups. I didn't say what it was. Google Groups are groups on Google. All right. I told you it wasn't going to be hard. If you go to my website here, I'll show you an example of that. If you look on my front page here, see this thing where it says join our email list? That's a Google group. At one point, I was reverse engineering websites, and I came across Rose Auctions because they have a Google group. I don't know if you know the Rose Auction ladies. If you go to CAI, they have the Rose Award. They're from up in Michigan.
Michigan.
Ohio? In Ohio, okay. And they have a Google group. That's how I found out about Google groups, because I was doing something that I'm going to show you in a minute called crawdad fishing. I was crawdad fishing, and I happened to find Rose Auctions. Okay, and I put a Google group on. So when I use Constant Contact, but when I use Constant Contact, one of the things that I email to is this little Google group. It's just one more way for people to find me, and it's one more way for Google to know about my website, because I have a group. I have several, and as time goes on, I'll have more, because you guys are going to join me. Picasa is for pictures. You can store pictures on Google. It's really quite to your advantage to do that. I'll show you some stuff about that in a little bit. And Google commands and operators. Anybody here know what a Google command is? Or an operator? I bet you use them, but you don't know. So if you go and search on Google, and this gets into a little bit more of the Boolean algebra in a minute. But if you typed in two words, like you said, red wagon, it's going to use the AND operator, A-N-D, and it's going to think that default, you want something about a red wagon, both words, red and wagon. Okay, so that's an operator, an example of that. In Google Places, anybody here use Google Places? Okay, one, way in the back, two, over there. Okay. So a few of you. Google Places is kind of how you can show up on a Google map search. And it's getting integrated. A lot of this stuff Google is putting together now. I mean, it used to be a little ways back, and there's some good YouTube videos on this. I would suggest you go look for Google on YouTube and watch some of these videos. I have some of them in this presentation. Google Places, at one point Google was just search. And then they started putting together, like, not just the regular websites, but what if you wanted an image? What if you wanted music, a video? What if you wanted a map? What if you wanted news? So I think they called it Google Everywhere when they put that all together. And they just did a release. When I talk about hitting a moving target, Google just came out with their Penguin release a few months ago. And you have to watch out, because sometimes people will go and go to a conference and someone will teach them how to show a source on Google. And then Google won't like the way that you're making things show up, and they penalize you. They put you in something called a sandbox. So you want to be sure that you're not violating Google's little rules and trying to trick Google. That is not what this class is about. We're not trying to trick Google. We're trying to give Google what Google wants and be what Google wants us to be, which is relevant and a source of information so that people want to come to our website. And then I'm going to talk some about Google search and how it works. Has anybody ever heard of Boolean algebra? Talking about scaring people. Okay, a couple of people actually have heard of it. You hear them say algebra, and people just start, going back to 7th grade. Boolean algebra, there was a guy named Boole, and he came up with this. And it's really fairly simple when you think about it. I want you to imagine, and I used to teach electrical trades, so I have a lot of experience because I would teach Boolean algebra to my high school students. Imagine that we have a corridor right here. It's a hallway. And it has 3 doors straight through the hallway, right? We all got that? There's 3 doors here. They all have locks. If I want to get through the